What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. We're under quarantine. I'm cooking a steak in there, so I'm probably gonna get up in a minute. But this is just a quick video. I thought I'd tell a story today about the time that I worked at Saturday Night Live. That's right. I worked at Saturday Night Live I think it was the 94-95 season and the 95-96 season. I was there for 2 years, and it was probably one of the best experiences of my life. When I was I must have been about 20, I was in college. I went to UMass Amherst, and I was a communications major there, bullshit major, and I was doing really good in classes or whatever, but it wasn't like hard to do good in those classes. And then I was like, I want to work in comedy, and that was like everything. I love comedy so much. Like, that was like my thing, and I just loved it. I was just like, I couldn't get enough of it. And I loved Saturday Night Live at the time. Saturday Night Live at the time was like Adam Sandler, David Spade, Chris Farley, a bunch of people, and those guys were older than me, obviously, but probably not that much older. They were probably in their late 20s or whatever. And I was about 21, and I was going to school at UMass, and I was like, I heard that there was an internship program at Saturday Night Live, so I was like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be an intern at Saturday Night Live. And I remember when I told my parents, I was like, I want to go to New York, and my mother was like, you're not gonna like New York. You're not gonna like it at all. And I was like, huh. I was like, okay. She's like, it's crowded, it's dirty, and the people are on top of each other. They're all crazy. And I was like, all right, well, maybe. And so I went down and I had an internship at Saturday Night Live. And so I arranged this internship. It was really funny because I was really nervous. And so my mother, who was like always so supportive of me, she like took me to Marshall's and she got me a 3-piece suit to wear to the interview to Saturday Night Live. So she drove me down. She drove me from Boston all the way down to New York, which is about 4 hours. And we drove up to 30 Rock, which is where they have like the Christmas tree and where they do the Today Show. You can see that on TV, and that's where Saturday Night Live is, on the 16th floor. And I went in, and the minute I walked in, I was like, oh my God, I felt so stupid, because people at Saturday Night Live, they don't wear 3-piece suits. Like, nobody, they literally wear like the grubbiest clothes. It's the whole point of being a comedian, is so you don't have to wear a 3-piece suit. That's the whole point of Saturday Night Live, is that you would like, literally the ethos of Saturday Night Live, it was born on like going against the system. It was a late night show that was born out of like, you know, like a new kind of television show that like broke all the rules of TV. And then I go in like I'm working at like, you know, Morgan Stanley. And I'm like, hi, I'm Jason. So immediately when I got in, it all hit me. I was like, of course. I was like, why are you so stupid? You're in a 3-piece suit. There's no way you're gonna get this. Hold on, I gotta check out my steak. Make sure I'm stuffing my mouth, guys. It's a big, when I look at the edit, I don't wanna have little marks of food there. I went in, I met with a woman named Karen Nathanson, who ran the like audio visual department, which was basically when they needed like clips, if the writers needed to like research something, or if also like they needed like a clip of something to throw to. And so, so it was, I went in and had the interview. Then I also went and interviewed at Dateline. I went down to Dateline, and I was like, ugh, I like didn't want to work at Dateline, but I was like, man. But in my mind, I was like, well, I've got to go to New York. That's how I was back then. Like, I used to make decisions like that. I was like, well, if I don't get Saturday Night Live, then I got to go do Dateline, which I didn't even want to do Dateline. I had already worked at the local news station in Boston, and I like didn't want to do news anymore. And I remember that was like a big thing with my parents too. I was telling them that I wanted to be a comedian, because I remember they're like, well, you know, if you don't get SNL, you know, so we drove back. We went back to Boston. My mother was like, well, if you don't get SNL, you might get Dateline. And that would be really great, you know, a journalist. That's a great job, being a journalist, being an investigative reporter. And secretly I was like, no, I don't want to work at Dateline. And I remember I sat my parents down, and I was like, hey, I want to get the job at Saturday Night Live because I want to be a comedian. I remember I was in a car with them, and I was like, guys, I have something to tell you. My father was like, oh God, what is this? What are you going to tell me? He must have thought I was like coming out of the closet or something. I was like, guys, what? Yo, what? I'm wanting to be a comedian. And they were like, huh? And I was like, I want to be a comedian, a stand-up comedian. And they were like, what? And I swear to God, they were like, what? And rightfully so, like, I'd never been funny ever around them. For me to say I wanted to be a comedian, I might as well said I want to be like a rocket scientist. And because my sister was really funny. She was the funny one in the family. She was really good with the old physical comedy, and she used to make us laugh all the time. And for me to say it, it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. And they were like, oh, okay. Are you sure? It's a really hard job. It's not that easy to become a comedian. I was like, no, I want to go to New York. I want to get this internship. Blah, blah, blah. So a couple days later, I got a call from Saturday Night Live, and they were like, you got it. And I was like, looking back, like, I don't know why they hired me. Like, I would have I can't believe they hired me. I couldn't have possibly given off a good impression. And maybe it was the suit, I don't know. But I'm not sure. And I remember, so then I got the internship, and I was like, oh my God. And I had no money. We had no money to go. Like, there was no possible way that I could afford an apartment in New York. And I found this apartment. It was with a dancer, this guy who was like, I don't know, he was in like his 40s, and he had a railroad apartment. A railroad apartment is basically an apartment that is connected. You have to walk through one bedroom to get to the second bedroom. And so I lived in there, and he was like really persnickety, and he collected magnets. And I remember he had a bunch of cats, and so I was just like living with this random dude. But it was okay because I would walk to work. And I remember when I got down to SNL, it was very hard for me to just pick up and go to New York because I had really, really good friends in college. Like, I was having the best time in college. Like, you know, all my friends were alcoholics, and they were really fun. And I didn't really drink that much, but I always had fun with my friends. And that's kind of like when I have my friends now at the Vlog Squad. That was what my friends were like at college. There was like the good-looking guy. There was like the crazy guy. There was like, you know, it was kind of like the same archetypes that we have now. And that's why when I found these guys, it was like being in college again. It really was. So then I went and I worked, and I was just like, I'll do whatever. Like, I don't care. I will literally lick shoes, whatever it takes. And so I went the first day. Literally the first day, like, I was like sitting like next to Adam Sandler, David Spade, and I would just run out and get coffee, and I loved it. Like, it became, what was nice about Saturday Night Live when I was there was that the show becomes your life, you know what I mean? So you suddenly just have this incredible purpose, which I just never had before. And the people there, the only thing I could say, like, I wasn't smart, I wasn't funny. The only thing I really was probably of value to them was that I loved the show and I wanted to just be around it at all times. So, for instance, like, Tuesday nights, the show works like this. The writers, the host comes in on Monday, whoever the host is, it's a famous person, and they all say like hello to the host. All the writers say hello to the host, and then a lot of the cast members and the writers they write Tuesday night, and they write sketches, and so like that Tuesday night they'll be up to like 4 or 5 in the morning, and then they would be like, you should go home, and I would be like, no, I don't want to go home. Like, I'll stay, I'll do anything. And so I think that they like that part of me. And so basically that's how SNL works, is the host comes in on Monday, they write all day Monday, they write all day Tuesday, they stay up really late Tuesday night, and then Wednesday you come in and I would like put the fruit platter out for everybody and put all the scripts out, and they sit around this big table. All the cast members sit around the table, and then behind the cast members are the writers. And then Lorne, who's the executive producer, who I only had a few interactions with, but couldn't have been nicer when I did talk to him. And Lorne will sit with the host, whoever the host is. In those days, like Alec Baldwin, I think, was a host one time. Like Pierce Brosnan, people like that. And then they would read all the sketches on Wednesday at like noon. And then they would Lorne would deliberate with the host, go in, and then all the writers would come and wait and see if their sketch got picked. And then Thursday and Friday, they start building sets. They do rewrites. Thursday and Friday, they block. So when you come in Thursday morning, they're already blocking the new sketches. And then Saturday, they block all day again, rewrite. They do a dress rehearsal at, I think it's like 8:30. And from that dress rehearsal, what started on Wednesday were probably 50 or 60 sketches that are written, that are probably like 6 or 7 or 8 pages each, and you got to read through them. Those get cut down to like 13 sketches that they that they make sets for, and they actually block and cast and do hair and makeup. And then those 13 go to the dress rehearsal, and then at dress, they probably cut probably like 3 or 4 more things. And so that was basically my year there. I remember getting certain food for Adam Sandler. I remember running errands for David Spade, stuff like that, and just kind of being around. And I was pretty shy. So then that season ended, and then I went back that was the fall of 1994, and then I went back to UMass. I finished my senior year, which was really fun that I got to do that. And I remember looking back, like, that was really smart of me, because I probably would have stayed, but it was good that I went back and like had like the graduation experience and stuff like that. So for any of you wondering, it's good to have those experiences, like to be with your friends and stuff. I'm glad I did that. So then that summer, I really, really wanted to get hired at SNL, and I kept calling, and then they hired me to be the receptionist for the 95-96 season, which was the year that the Sandler and Spade and Farley, they all left. I also remember talking to Chris Farley. That was really fun. He was so nice. He asked me about my family, he asked me about my mom. He like couldn't have been sweeter. David Spade was always so nice. And so then I got the job as the receptionist, which was like when you would walk off 16, all the people would come, and so then that was the job I had. I made $400 a week. I got in really early every day. I left really late. And then I remember that year was the year they hired Will Ferrell, Tracy Morgan, David Koechner, Sherry O'Terry. So they were, and Norm McDonald. So they were all new cast members. I think Norm was there the year before. And so it was a completely kind of a pretty new cast, Jim Brewer. And so then I was new with them, and so they were all kind of going through it, and I would help them with whatever they needed. And so that was really fun. I remember Mick Jagger called on the phone once, and I talked to him, and he said, "Is Lorne there?" And I was like, yeah, hang on. I'm like, who's this? And even though I knew who it was, and he's like, "It's Mick calling." And I was like, yeah, let me get him. He's like, "Oh yeah, take your time." He was super nice. Who else? Tracy Morgan used to just come up and sit with me because he didn't know where to go, because he was like new to the cast. And it was funny to watch like his evolution. Like he went from like being like really shy and not knowing anybody to being like the funniest person on the show after I left. The main thing that I did probably that year was that I became friends with this comedian named Norm McDonald, who had the Weekend Update spot. And if you don't know who Norm McDonald is, he's a brilliant comedian. He's probably the best Weekend Update guy ever. Well, in my opinion. They've all been great, but Norm's my favorite. And he, along with this guy Jim Downey, who ran the show for a long time, who was there from the beginning, brilliant, super brilliant. Those guys really taught me a lot about comedy they never actually like sat there and were like, hey, this is how you do something, but it was more like just watching them work. I remember Norm taught me something really early, or he just said he used to sit and smoke, and he was really, he said once, he said, well, the joke should always be the furthest thing away from what you expect. And that was something that, always stuck with me. There was also a really funny clip. I'll see if I can find it and put it in. But it's Norm Macdonald and Colin Quinn being interviewed by MTV. And because Norm was like a very confident dude. And I remember the woman, Tabitha Soren, goes to Colin Quinn. He goes, and Colin Quinn was also on the show. He was new too, and he was really funny. And they go, oh, what do you think of Norm Macdonald? He's the John Wayne of, everyone's calling him the John Wayne of comedy. And Colin Quinn said, John Wayne Gacy, which I thought was one of the most brilliant, like, comebacks to anything I've ever heard in my life. John Wayne Gacy. If you don't know, John Wayne Gacy was a serial killer. And Colin Quinn was really funny. Colin Quinn was the funniest off camera. You guys don't know who Colin Quinn is, look him up. He does like amazing one-man shows that Jerry Seinfeld's directed. And he had a show on Comedy Central. Really funny comedian. One of my favorites. And also Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell would walk around in character all the time. And being the receptionist, it was me and this girl, Deb Cullen. Hi, Deb, if you're watching. And we kind of just sat there. And it was really fun because it was like being the receptionist, people would come up, all of the cast would come up and try their material on you to see if it would work. So Will Ferrell would come up and like have like funny glasses on and like doing like something, and you'd be like, oh my God, that was hilarious. And then the next thing you know, it was in the show that night. Or Jim Brewer would come up and like try to make us laugh, and I think we were good laughers. And I think that was I started working with Norm a lot, so I would answer the phones during the day. And then this is a good lesson for anybody that's like trying to be something. When my job was only from 10 to 6, technically. But at 6 o'clock, I would leave there and walk across the hall and go sit with Norm and work for him and just whatever he needed. Fax. Back then, you fax jokes. David and I were together like about a year ago. And I said, we were talking about getting a writer, and I said, oh yeah, maybe have somebody fax some jokes in. And I said fax, and he was like, did you just say fax? And I was like, yeah, I did. But yeah, I mean, another job I had was that on Saturday nights, I would work the door at the party. So I would see every kind of star walking in, like not just people that were on the show, like it was like the party that everybody wanted to go to in New York. So any kind of movie star would come in. Leonardo DiCaprio would come in. Tobey Maguire came in. Even people that weren't hosting the show, and I would be at the door. And it was a pretty easy job because if you saw Leonardo DiCaprio, you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, come on in. You know, I don't know. They were pretty nice to me. But yeah, and so I guess the end of the story, which is really interesting, is it got to be. I finished the whole year there. And I wanted to be like be a writer there or something and move up. And they were like, yeah, we don't know, whatever. And I got a job writing at MTV. So I took that job writing at MTV because it paid like 3 times as much. And then I started performing. And then the next year, at the end of '96, I got an audition. And I auditioned for SNL. And I don't know how I can get a hold of that SNL tape. I don't think it's on YouTube or anything. I'll look and see, but I don't think it is. It's probably in their files. But I got, you get 6 minutes. I was, by then I was in LA performing, doing my thing. I want to say it's 96. It might have been 97. I know I auditioned the same year that Jimmy Fallon auditioned for SNL. So whoever wants to look that up, they can look it up. And I remember they flew me to New York. They gave me a hotel room, and I was really nervous. I was really green. I went up there, I had a bunch of characters that I knew worked that I'd started to do stand-up and stuff. So I was like, I know all this stuff works. So I got up, did all my characters. No one laughed. It was dead silence. Maybe a cameraman chuckled. And then I'm up there and I said, I needed to play a song. I used to do this character, like a Jim Morrison, like lounge singer. And I said, I need to play a tape. And it was, gosh, why did I move so close to the airport? But I did go I need a CD, a boombox. And I remember it just froze, everything just froze. No one helped me. And I think they do that on purpose. They want to see how you handle no laughs. You know, how composed you are, how much it bothers you to be just dying up there. And yeah, and that was really awkward. So it was a good audition except for that one moment. They brought me this boombox and I did it and I did the bit and that was it. And I remember I walked out and there were some people that weren't necessarily so nice to me when I was there, some of the people that worked there. And I remember I walked out and one of the girls who wasn't nice to me, she gave me a big hug. She was like, oh my God, she's like, that was so good. She's like, we're so proud of you. We can't believe you came this far. And I was like, oh, cool. And then for a couple months after, maybe for a couple months, I don't know, maybe it was 6 weeks or so, we were waiting. My agent kept saying, oh, you're in the mix or whatever, but then I didn't get it. Yeah, that was it. That was my story for SNL. I love SNL, still love the show. And yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna eat the rest of my steak. And yeah, have a good one. Oh, check out my merch. Okay, bye.